Hey everyone, sorry it's currently offline. Hopefully that's okay. Ooh. Anyway, here I am, day 4 of my 30-day ideas challenge. So what I thought I might actually talk about this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you are around the world, is one of the key minerals that is actually really quite widespread in terms of its deficiency status. So what I'm actually talking about is magnesium. It might be something that you take regularly. Maybe it's something you just take intermittently. Maybe you're not really, using it at all. And what's interesting is when they're, this medical literature that's out there, what they're finding is there's kind of two things happening. The first one is there's this neglected epidemic of chronic disease. Say hey if you're there, I can see someone's just jumped on. So I'm just talking a little bit about magnesium. So I was just saying that what's happening when you're looking at the medical literature is there's two things that they're finding. The first one is there is this, hey, hi, I can see a few people there. Hi. There is this neglected epidemic of chronic disease. Secondly, what they're finding is there's this real widespread deficiency of selected nutrients. And one of those nutrients is magnesium, because they're finding that there's a lot of studies that are showing that reduced levels of magnesium are associated with a wide range of chronic diseases. We're going to look at those in a moment. And the reason I'm passionate about this is, so I've been in the supplement industry now since 2007. So I'm a qualified herbalist and nutritionist and health coach and all those things. So I've seen a lot of people over the years in clinic and health food stores and pharmacies and things like that. And it's interesting. It's one of those things that I find people respond really well to. Bearing in mind, not all magnesiums are equal. There's lots of different magnesium supplements out there. A lot of them are magnesium oxide, which is kind of a cheaper, inferior kind of form of it. It's not as well absorbed. Generally, you want to go something for more like citrate. There's also magnesium glycinate and forms like that. So it's just the way that they're bound. And, depending on, I guess, why you're using it, you might use a different form. But what they're finding is when you look at the dietary data intake, the average magnesium intake has decreased significantly over the last 100 years. And the thing with magnesium, why it's so important for all of us, is it's involved in so many functions in the body. So they say it's like a cofactor in over something like 300 enzymes. And they regulate such functions as muscle contraction, heart contraction, blood pressure regulation, blood glucose regulation, neuromuscular conduction, protein synthesis. And, they do have an important role to play in the bones, in the mitochondria, which is like the powerhouse, the energy, the cells, the DNA, the RNA. It also has a role in our immune function. And as I said, it's really quite widespread, magnesium deficiencies. And the thing is, you can go and get it checked via a blood test, but it's not that accurate because it's going to give you a bit of a snapshot. And yeah, that can highlight that maybe there is a deficiency, but there's a very minute amount that's actually in the blood. So what can actually cause, hey, I can see a few people are there, what actually causes magnesium deficiency? So it can be things like various medications, various diuretics, things like that. Even the oral contraceptive pill can deplete you of various vitamins and minerals. Stress, 100%. Poor nutrition. So often, people are opting for the wrong sorts of foods and they're not getting these minerals that the body needs. If you're drinking alcohol regularly, that can be depleting you of your magnesium levels. Pregnancy and lactation have increased demands. If you have a hormone disorder, if you have a gut disorder, it could be something like Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, things like that. If you have kidney dysfunction, if you have acidosis, like a metabolic acidosis condition. And as I said, because magnesium is so important for so many functions in the body, it will impact your, body's ability to, for instance, even things like our heart rhythm, our body's ability to, contract muscles, to relax muscles, for nerve function. And as I said earlier, for energy, for blood glucose, for blood pressure, for immune function, for our bones. insulin secretion. And it's interesting, the more I was listening to a webinar the other day, as you do, just for fun. And, you know, people are talking about N-acetylcysteine and how important it is for, you know, when people have lung conditions. So they were talking about with COVID, especially some of the earlier strains, how it had a real affinity and seemed to, you know, move into the lungs. And Nilva, hi, how are you? And that's what they're sort of saying, that even with some of these like N-acetylcysteine, it can be fine. And I do take it intermittently because it is quite good for helping where there is mucus secretions, and that tends to be a weakness for me. Like I tend to be more of a, you know, like a sinusy sort of person and histamine sort of person. But the thing is, if there's not enough magnesium present, then it's actually not going to be beneficial. In fact, it can actually be harmful. So that's where, as I said, it's like, and not that I want to say go and take copious amounts of it, because of course everything is in balance, but just being sure that, as I said, you are, you know, considering that if there is some of these things present, like as I said, excess alcohol intake, you know, some of these hormone disorders, if you have had surgeries and, you know, if you do exercise a lot, if there is a lot of stress, that maybe you do need to consider having more in your diet, or maybe whether a supplement of magnesium is relevant for you. So some of the signs and symptoms that maybe you do have a deficiency, and it can be interesting because it can be asymptomatic when there is a very mild deficiency present. But for some, it can also present as things like weakness, feeling like tired and fatigued, low mood and anxiety, or the opposite, where there's this kind of excitability, agitation. There could be headaches, like muscle twitches and spasms. That's a common one. Loss of appetite, dizziness, nausea, and an inability to tolerate stress. And in saying that, as you can see, you don't have one of those symptoms and all of a sudden think, oh, magnesium deficiency, because as we know, they can tend to mimic other things. So, you know, fatigue could also be potentially things like low iron and low B12 and low D and things like that. So, or low thyroid function. So it's not always a clear cut, oh, I'm fatigued, I need to take magnesium. But that's how it can present as a deficiency symptom. And the thing is, if you do have low magnesium for a long time, which people do, it can increase your risk of things like migraines, strokes. It can also, if you have any kind of chronic kidney disease, it can increase your risk of osteoporosis. It can also increase people's chances of insulin resistance, oxidative stress. Also, when you have a blood test, you know, they look at cholesterol, they look at the LDL cholesterol and the HDL cholesterol. The HDL cholesterol is, you know, more of the good cholesterol, they say. Having lower magnesium over time will decrease your good HDL levels. It will increase triglycerides and total cholesterol. And of course, as I said, this isn't in isolation, but this is a potential adverse effect of having low magnesium status over time. It can increase your risk of arrhythmias, and they say mortality in patients with heart conditions or heart failure in particular. It can increase your risk of blood pressure, of atherosclerosis, and also because, you know, a lot of magnesium is stored in the bones, it can increase your risk of things like, you know, osteoporosis, bone fragility, and things like that. And it can affect your parathyroid levels. It can decrease vitamin D levels, which, as we know, they're finding more and more how important vitamin D is. It's involved in so many functions, including immune health and bone health, of course. So what is interesting as well is they say that, you know, a large chunk of the magnesium is absorbed in the gut, and the remainder is eliminated, you know, in the feces. But what can happen is we're actually maybe only absorbing, say, you know, from the diet, maybe a third of it or something like that. And then we're excreting a lot of it. And what's interesting is when you look at where it's stored, so they say, you know, because the kidneys are really important as well. The kidneys play a really important role in magnesium regulation and balance. But the muscles store something like 6,500 milligrams of magnesium. The bones have almost 13,000 milligrams of magnesium, and other tissues have close to 5,000 milligrams of magnesium. So you can see that there's actually quite decent concentrations in the body. So where do we get magnesium? You're probably wondering. So they say like per 100 grams, it's if you're having something like, say, flax seeds, so linseeds, per 100 grams, that's, a decent amount, you're getting about 392 milligrams. 100 grams of Brazil nuts, you're getting about 376 milligrams of magnesium. Half a cup of spinach boiled, yep, not everyone's cup of tea, I do like spinach, you're getting about 78 milligrams. 1 cup of avocado, you're getting 44 milligrams of magnesium. Half a cup of kidney beans, you're getting 35 milligrams. And what else have we got? Things like bananas. A banana, you're getting about 31 milligrams of magnesium. So also parsley. So once again, as I said, this is like per 100 grams of this particular food. You're getting roughly 35 milligrams. Wheat bran uncooked, you're getting 450 milligrams. Quinoa, you're getting 197 milligrams. Cup of uncooked oats, you're getting 100 milligrams. And remember, people often say about cacao and cocoa and things like that. So cocoa, 100 grams of cocoa, you're getting about 520 milligrams of magnesium. So, there's various foods, as I said, that you can be getting it in. But for whatever reason, as I said, like we touched on that earlier, a lot of people aren't getting enough. And when you look at the RDIs, which as we know is kind of the recommended dietary intake, which is quite low really. When you look at, say, a female in that kind of 19 to, 50 age category, you need around 310, 320 milligrams a day, they're saying, from your diet. So as you can see from those foods that I just listed, there is definitely ways that you can be getting it, but are you eating those sort of foods? That's the thing. And then for a male who's, same thing, around 19 to 50 years, it's between 400 to 420 milligrams. So it's definitely a bit more than a female there. But it's really important, as I said, to make sure that we are getting these things in our diet. So, it's just another good reason to have a healthier balance in what we are eating. And as I said, not all magnesiums are equal. So, magnesium citrate can be quite good. Magnesium glycinate I like because, glycine's been shown to help with insomnia and stress and things like that, which I've tended to have in the past. Magnesium taurate has been shown to be quite useful. So as I said, it depends on why you're using it, but it has been shown to help with quite a few, conditions. And as I said, I just touched on some of the things that it can help prevent. But as I said, I encourage you to just, maybe reflect on it and just see, am I getting a balanced diet? Am I eating those sorts of foods? Would I be getting enough magnesium? Is there potentially a reason why I would be low? So as we said, are you drinking alcohol regularly? Have you had surgery? Are you pregnant? Are you lactating? Are you exercising a lot? Have you had a lot of stress? Are you having a poor diet? Because they will all increase your needs for magnesium. And also if you're having a calcium supplement, you really should also be having magnesium as well, because, there's other cofactors that are involved in bone health. It's not just calcium, there's magnesium, there's D, there's, K2, all these things are important. But as with anything, I really encourage you, rather than going straight away and just getting a magnesium supplement, really look at your diet. And it's interesting, I spoke to someone recently and, was helping her with weight. And she'd lost, I want to say 20 kilos. And that was actually through, yes, walking and exercise more, but also through just making sure she was actually meeting the recommended dietary intake of all these various vitamins and minerals. And, as I said, like people aren't. And I mean, the RDIs are quite low in a lot of ways. But, really, as I said, look at your diet, look at, you're getting enough of these sort of foods. Is there some of those factors that we just spoke about that are present and hence would require maybe having some supplementation? But really, as I said, I always say, speak to your healthcare practitioner because everyone is so different. What you're going through, your background, your medications, your lifestyle, your background, everything, comes into play. So speak to your healthcare practitioner. see if it is something that you need to potentially consider. And have a look into it. There's some really compelling data. There's actually quite a few clinical trials and things like that where they've shown that it's been helpful in things like ADHD, Alzheimer's, because they've found that often people with Alzheimer's do tend to be lower in magnesium. It has also been found to be useful in things like atopic dermatitis, asthma, so it's been able to help with bronchospasm reduction. It's also helped with hospitalization reduction when it comes to asthma, and constipation. It can help there as a laxative. They've found that people with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, that there's often low magnesium. They've also looked at clinical trials, and they've done studies on cardiovascular disease and how that's linked to magnesium deficiency. There's been memory improvements in dementia, having magnesium supplementation. So as I said, this is all in some of the studies and the trials and the reviews that are out there. So you can go and have a look. Go and look at PubMed. Go and look at Google Scholar. Depression and anxiety reduction and prevention, diabetes and metabolic syndrome. So they've found that type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome are linked to magnesium deficiency. They've found that in patients with fibromyalgia, that it's helped in a reduction in pain and depression and tender points and things like that. It can help decrease C-reactive protein, which is a marker which suggests that there's inflammation present. There's clinical trials and experimental trials on it helping with insomnia in terms of someone's ability or people's ability to sleep better and fall asleep quicker. And there's also improvements in cortisol and melatonin and things like that. And I know over the years I've been able to help people with magnesium, with constipation, with blood pressure, with headaches, with difficult period pain, with sleep, with all sorts of things. But as I said, you need to speak to a healthcare practitioner and see if it is right for you. So anyway, on that note, I'm going to love you and leave you. I better go and make dinner. Eek, I didn't realise it was 6:35. So I will love you and leave you, and I'll be back tomorrow with day 5. I never know from day to day what I'm going to talk about, but I am committed, and that was something I spoke about yesterday, that, commitment is something that really starts to build that momentum and the energy, and a lot of people are more half-hearted. So that was yesterday's discussion, and today I thought I will talk about magnesium. Tomorrow, I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about, but I will be back, and I will see you all soon. Bye.